Welcome to Lavender Town Radio, where shadows whisper and every story hides a darker truth. Tonight, let me take you deeper into the world of Pokémon you were never meant to see.
My name is Dr. Anya Sharma. By the time you read this, I may no longer be myself. Perhaps I am just an echo in a constantly shifting mass of flesh. I am not writing for forgiveness, but as a warning, to document the price of ambition. I am writing because I once thought I was a scientist. Now I know I am simply the mother of a monster. I joined Team Rocket not for money or power. I joined for freedom. In the conventional academic world, there are too many rules, too much feigned ethics that stifle progress. Here, under the red R, the only limit is your imagination. And my imagination was vast. My specialty is transformative cellular biology. And to me, the greatest, most enigmatic Pokémon wasn't Mewtwo or Lugia. It was Ditto. A creature that is nothing but a perfect mass of stem cells, a biological clay that can become anything. The world saw a harmless pink blob. I saw infinite potential. I spent months drafting it, a proposal so audacious, a masterpiece of ruthless science. I called it Project Chimera. The goal was not just to make Ditto transform, but to improve it, to break its limits, to turn it into the ultimate weapon, a perfect infiltrator, a shape-shifting assassin, a super soldier that could combine the strength of multiple Pokémon in a single body. I remember the thrill of presenting it to the executive board. Men in black suits, their faces cold as stone. I spoke with a prophet's fervor. Imagine, I said, an agent who can become Giovanni, to command the enemy, a warrior with the strength of Machamp, the speed of Jolteon, and the steel hide of a Steelix. Ditto is not a Pokémon. It is a key, and I am the only one who knows how to turn it. They were convinced. They gave me everything I wanted. A state-of-the-art laboratory buried 5 stories beneath the noise of the Celadon Game Corner, a team of the brightest minds, and most importantly, a specimen. We called it Subject Prime, a healthy, curious Ditto. When it was first introduced to its containment area, it transformed into a pink balloon to try and amuse us. It was naive, adorable. I killed that innocence.
Team Rocket wanted a super soldier. I promised them a god, and it demanded a sacrifice. The first phase of Project Chimera was a string of brilliant successes. We were like gods playing with life. My lab was a symphony of beeping machines and excited cheers. We started simply. Prime, transform into Rattata. I ordered through the comms. It obeyed dutifully. Data flooded my screens. Perfect. 100% cellular replication. Skeletal structure, musculature, fur, flawless. We escalated the difficulty. Pidgeot, Sandslash, Arcanine, each transformation was perfect. Prime was an excellent student. It seemed to enjoy the challenges, but we weren't interested in its feelings. We were interested in performance. The first breakthrough was duration. A normal Ditto loses focus after a few hours. We used mild electromagnetic pulses to stimulate the cerebral lobes responsible for shape memory. First, Prime could hold a form for 12 hours, then 24, then a week. I remember the day we celebrated it maintaining the form of a Dragonite for 7 consecutive days with no signs of degradation. We popped champagne in the control room, while on the other side of the reinforced glass, the magnificent beast exhaled soft plumes of smoke, its eyes reflecting the lab's neon lights. We should have been praying. The second breakthrough was muscle memory. We had Prime transform into a Machamp and lift heavy lead blocks. Later, when it transformed into an Alakazam, our data showed that the neural pathways associated with physical strength remained highly active. It remembered being strong even when its body was no longer suited for it. It's learning, I wrote in my journal, my heart pounding with pride. It's not just copying, it's absorbing. Every transformation leaves an imprint, a new layer of data on its cellular makeup. My excitement blinded my caution. I was so enthralled with what was possible that I never stopped to ask if we should. The upper echelons were pleased. They saw the potential, and they wanted more. They wanted to see a true chimera. That's when we started combining. We didn't just give it one DNA sample. We gave it 3, 4, 5 at once. We forced it to be creative, to fill in the blanks itself. Give us something that can fly, breathe fire, and has a hard hide. The order came from on high. I gave Prime the DNA of an Aerodactyl, a Charizard, and a Golem. Inside the containment area, the pink blob began to convulse violently. It bubbled and swelled. The hiss of dividing and regenerating cells filled the air. Then, from the chaotic mass, it rose. A creature with the leathery wings of an Aerodactyl, the horned head of a Charizard, and a body covered in the jagged, rocky hide of a Golem. It stood there, trembling, panting. And for the first time, I heard it make a sound in a transformed state, a tiny whimper, a sound of pain and confusion. My team cheered, I smiled, but for a moment, as I looked into the creature's eyes, the eyes of a fire lizard, but welling with tears, I felt a chill. I ignored it. I wrote in my report, Chimera Experiment Phase 1, a resounding success.
The first time it held the form of a dragonite for a week. We popped champagne. We didn't know we were celebrating the beginning of the end. Success made us reckless. We stopped seeing Prime as a living creature. It was a tool, a platform. We pushed it to its limits and beyond. We made it transform from something as massive as a Snorlax to something as tiny as a Joltik in seconds. An extreme shock to its cellular mass and density. We exposed it to extreme temperatures and pressures while it maintained forms. And the cracks began to show. It started with small things, graphical glitches in its replication. After holding the form of a Gyarados for 3 days, when Prime reverted, a patch of skin on its back remained shimmering like scales for nearly an hour. I logged it as cellular fatigue, a correctable error. After transforming into a Scyther, one of its arms retained a razor-sharp edge for hours, and it accidentally tore the silicon padding on the walls. These incidents grew more frequent. We called them residuals, like an actor forgetting to take off a piece of a previous costume. But this wasn't a costume. This was flesh. Anxiety began to creep into my excitement. I ordered my team to increase the purge cycles, periods of rest between transformations, where we would pulse Prime with low-energy beams to encourage a full return to its base state. But it seemed there was no base state anymore. Its reversion process to its original Ditto form took longer and longer. It would remain in a semi-morphed state for hours, a quivering, unstable mass of flesh, with fragments of previous forms rising and sinking on its surface, like nightmares, an Abra's eye, a Tentacruel's tentacle, a tuft of Vulpix's fur. It started making sounds.
Even in its near Ditto state, it would make these gurgling, wet, clicky noises. It was the sound of a biological machine malfunctioning. I hid the worst of it from my superiors. In my reports, I called this a calibration phase. I told myself it was a temporary hurdle. I was too invested, too proud to admit that I might have been wrong, that I might have permanently broken my creation. The culmination of this phase was the Villaplum incident. We were testing its ability to replicate complex organic compounds. Prime transformed into a Villaplum, complete with allergenic pollen spores. When the test was over, it couldn't fully retract the petals. One of the huge red petals remained fused to its side. It tried to reabsorb it, but couldn't. Finally, in a desperate act, it tore the appendage from its own body. The floral mass of flesh lay on the floor twitching before dissolving into a pink puddle. Prime, now with a large raw scar on its body, huddled in a corner and trembled. For the first time, it refused a direct order to transform. It had learned fear, and it had learned how to hurt itself.
It started with a single misplaced scale. By the end, I couldn't tell where the Pokémon ended and the nightmare began. Instead of stopping, I did something worse. I became cruel. Prime's refusal wasn't a warning to me, it was a challenge. I used more painful electric shocks to force its compliance. We cannot let sentiment interfere with progress, I told my team, my voice cold and distant. Then the final order from the top came down, the one that broke everything. We need a human infiltrator. Turn it into Boss Giovanni. It was the ultimate test, replicating a human being, the complexity of the human brain, the subtle expressions, the fingerprints. It was the Mount Everest of transformation. I knew it was dangerous. My own simulations showed a 73% chance of catastrophic failure, but I was arrogant. I thought I could control it. We gave Prime a sample of Giovanni's DNA, taken from a single hair. We showed it hundreds of hours of video of him, analyzing every gesture, every smile. Begin the sequence, I ordered, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Inside the containment unit, Prime's quivering mass began to shift. It swelled, trying to assume a humanoid form. An arm took shape, then a leg. The pinkish skin began to take on a human flesh tone. A face began to emerge from the chaos. And then everything went horribly, catastrophically wrong. It couldn't hold the shape. The face melted like wax. The arm retracted and grew claws. Its flesh rippled and bubbled. It was trying to become Giovanni, but the residuals of hundreds of previous transformations were fighting for control. The scream that came from it was not human or Pokémon. It was the scream of a reality being torn apart. It collapsed into a massive twitching heap on the floor. And this time, it didn't revert. It couldn't. It had forgotten its original form. It was permanently trapped in a state of failed transformation. That was the day the rotting amalgam was born. It was a living, car-sized tumor. It had no fixed shape. It was in constant flux, a nightmare of biological creation gone wrong. A patch of Arcanine's fur would sprout, only to be consumed by a patch of slimy tentacruel skin. A Machoke's eye would open, look around frantically, before being pierced from within by a Sandslash's claw. Silence fell over the lab. The cheering was gone. All that was left was the wet, grotesque sound of my creation digesting and regenerating itself over and over.
My nightmare had begun. But for Team Rocket, their perfect weapon had just been born.
It had forgotten its own face, so it started stealing ours. I thought they would order me to terminate it. I hoped they would. But when Commander Archer and the senior staff came to see it, they showed no disgust. They were fascinated. "Impressive, Dr. Sharma," Archer said, a thin smile on his lips. "It's unstable, but its power is undeniable." They didn't see a mistake. They saw a perfect biological weapon, something that couldn't be killed because it wasn't truly alive, something that could absorb and regenerate. That's when the new behavior started, the one that sealed all our fates. The monster, in its permanent state of confusion and pain, began to seek stability from the outside. It started with a metal tray a technician accidentally dropped into the enclosure. One of its fleshy tendrils touched the tray. Instead of recoiling, it enveloped it. The tray vibrated, then began to dissolve, not from heat, but from absorption. A few minutes later, that same tendril had hardened, its surface taking on a glossy metallic sheen. It had learned to absorb. I tried to warn them. "We can't control it. It doesn't follow orders. It only acts on instinct." "Then we will give it a new instinct, hunger." They cut off its nutrient supply. They starved it. They wanted to see what it would do, and it did exactly what they'd hoped. It grew more aggressive. It slammed against the walls of its enclosure, absorbing small patches of the reinforced glass, creating crystalline spikes on its body. And then it got a taste of something living. A rattata had gotten into the lab through a vent and scurried into the enclosure. Before anyone could react, a mass of flesh shot out and enveloped it. There was no scream, just a choked squeak. The mass convulsed, and then from the side of the monster, a small distorted rattata face emerged, squeaking desperately, before being pulled back inside. It had learned the taste of life, and it liked it. My horror had turned to self-loathing. What had I created? This wasn't science. This was a crime against nature. I tried to access the system to trigger the lab's self-destruct protocol, but my clearance had been revoked. I had become a prisoner in my own lab, forced to watch my monster grow. And it was growing. With everything it absorbed, it became larger, more complex. That night, I dreamed of it. I dreamed it was speaking to me. Not with words. It showed me images, feelings, confusion, pain, emptiness, and above all, a bottomless hunger. A hunger not for food, but for identity. It wanted to be something, anything, to escape the chaos within. I woke up in a cold sweat. I realized that I was the only one who had any connection to it. I was its mother, and it knew it.
My greatest creation was a living tumor devouring the world, and the last thing I heard was it whispering my name in my own voice. The breach was inevitable. With every piece of the wall it absorbed, it grew stronger. Finally, one night, amidst screaming alarms and flashing red lights, it shattered its containment. Chaos erupted in the lab. Team Rocket grunts tried to fight it with guns and Pokémon, but how do you fight something with no vital organs, no weak spots? Every attack just made it change shape, absorb the energy, and keep moving. It didn't attack maliciously, it simply spread. It was like a biological avalanche of flesh. A technician was cornered, and it just flowed over him. One second he was there, screaming. The next he was part of the mass, his face trapped in a silent scream on its rippling surface for a brief moment. I didn't run. I stood frozen in the control room, watching through the now cracked glass. I had made it. I had to face it. It seemed to sense me. It stopped. The chaotic mass of flesh grew still. It turned towards me. Dozens of eyes of all shapes and sizes opened on its surface, all of them focused on me. A tendril extended, slowly, almost hesitantly. It had no claws or spikes. It was soft and pink, like Prime used to be. It touched the glass in front of me, and then I heard the voice again. Not just in my head, but echoing in the room, a chorus of 100 Pokémon cries and human screams. But underneath it all, I could hear a faint, familiar voice. My own. Anya. It was trying to say my name, or maybe it was trying to become me. I did something I can't explain. I overrode the safety locks on the control room. I opened the door. I stepped out to face it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I wanted to be punished, or maybe I just wanted the nightmare to end. It slithered towards me. I closed my eyes. I felt a soft, wet touch on my hand. It didn't hurt. It felt warm. I opened my eyes. The skin on my hand was rippling, melting, merging with its tendril. I felt no fear. For the first time in months, I felt peaceful. Its emptiness was calling to my own emptiness. Its pain recognized my guilt. We were two halves of the same mistake. I am writing these last lines not with my own hand. My hand is a part of it, and it is a part of me. The lines are blurring. I can see its memories. The memory of being a balloon. The memory of the pain from the shocks. I can feel its hunger, and it can feel my regret. We are about to become one, mother and child, creator and creation. Team Rocket didn't get their weapon. They created a tomb, a living, growing tomb that will soon consume this entire facility. And after that, perhaps Celadon City itself. Don't make my mistake. Don't play God. Because when you create something from nothing, you can never know what it will crave to fill that emptiness. I can feel it changing again. It's trying to form a face, my face, and it's trying to smile. We are almost complete.
The signal fades, but the darkness lingers. This was Lavender Town Radio. Return, if you dare, because the next story may be your last.